Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Let's go over what the stars are doing in the sky for the week ahead. We're getting used to the Neptune and Aries vibes. It's been hitting me particularly hard. It's my sun is at 1 degrees of Aries, and so Neptune is quickly making its approach to conjoin my sun. And let me tell you, the waterworks have been in full force. I've been way more emotional than usual. I just moved to a new place after living almost 7 or 8 years in another house. It was the longest I've ever lived someplace. So just the emotions that come with that, the release, the looking back with rose-colored glasses at all the memories and stuff, and it's been quite an emotional process that I wasn't really expecting. Definitely very Neptunian. I feel raw, I feel open, I feel exposed, I feel like things are dissolving within me. So I'm looking forward to this Neptunian transit. I was wondering kind of how it would hit me since it was going to be conjoining my sun. And I'm starting to get kind of a sense of what that's like. And although it's really uncomfortable and emotional, and I have an Aquarius stellium, and so I like to be very objective and detached and not in my emotions. And so I can feel that this Neptunian energy is really bringing in the feels, and I'm looking forward to it. We've also got, Mercury still retrograde and Venus retrograde, and that changes this week, thankfully, but we're still kind of in retrograde mode with both of those planets. This week we are in the waxing gibbous moon phase, so we're building on the themes that we initiated and the seeds that we planted during the Aries new moon a couple weeks ago. This week's heavy hitters are really going to be about Venus retrograde conjoining Saturn before turning direct. We've got Mercury stationing direct as he trines Mars in Cancer. This offers an emotionally in tune mental kind of kickstart as we start finishing up the retrograde cycle. We've also got a full moon in Libra, which is leading to a culmination or a highlight of the cycle that we started again at the new moon in Aries. So that's where we're at this week. I'm Cody. Before we dive in, make sure to subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out. It keeps you up to date with the astrological movements and what's going on. And if you like this video, give it a like and comment on what you got out of it. It really helps me to judge, where the content is going, what you guys are getting out of it, what I can change, what I'm doing good. So feel free to leave your comments down below to give me your insight. So let's hop into the transits for the week ahead. We start off on Monday, April 7th. We have the moon in Leo, which I love. It's also trining the sun, which is awesome. And it's sextile Jupiter, which is even better. We've got Venus retrograde conjoining Saturn today in the sign of Pisces, as both of those planets make a sextile to Uranus in Taurus. And we've also got Mars in Cancer separating from a trine from the Venus-Saturn conjunction. And that kind of happened over the weekend, but we're kind of feeling the effects as Mars starts to separate from that trine. I love this start to the week. The moon in Leo trining the sun, it's a fiery, expressive kind of start to the week. There's an expressive nature of the moon in Leo. It wants to be seen. It wants to be validated for its authenticity and its showiness. And then the sun in Aries is exalted. And that's ruling the moon in Leo, and through the trine aspect, there's a harmonious flow there. So there's this, with the sun in Aries, there's this bold kind of courageous go for it attitude that is fueling and synthesizing with the expressiveness and the warmth and the radiating nature of our emotions with the moon in Leo. The moon, taps into this Leo warmth and this Leo kind of ability to shine and this pride. And the trine to the sun offers, this smooth fire to fire kind of connection where the emotions based on the moon and our will based on the sun are in sync, and they come alive in this fiery, passionate kind of energy. To me, it's like pure feel-good vibes for the day. And then the moon will make a sextile to Jupiter and Gemini later in the day. This is more feel-good energy. It's Jupiter's jovial. It's fun. It's optimistic. It's down for a good time and down to explore new adventures and do new things. Being in Gemini in its detriment, it may be a little flighty, a little scattered, a little fickle, maybe kind of, exposing yourself to a bunch of different tangents and maybe hard to focus a little bit. But ultimately, there's this spark of mental activity with Jupiter and Gemini, and this sense of like wanting to network and share information and like be a little bit more social and fun and witty and kind of you know, just brainstorming and sharing ideas with people. So with this combination of the moon and Leo trining the sun, and then later on with the sextile to Jupiter, you know, it's a time to dream big and express yourself in a way that's bold, even if it's a bit messy and a bit scattered. Like, go after those big opportunities. You know, it's a great start to the week on Monday. At the same time of all that fiery kind of energy happening between Leo and Aries, we've got some watery vibes happening in Pisces, where Venus is still retrograde in Pisces and she's conjoining Saturn, while both of them are sextiling Uranus, and that Mars trine is separating. So there's a fire water kind of tension on Monday, but ultimately I really see this kind of like Venus retrograde in Pisces as like this compassionate, dreamy, loving, sensitive energy, but it's turned inward still because we're still reviewing our Venus retrograde process. We're still looking inward and reassessing and reevaluating our love, our relationships, our creativity, our resources, our money, those types of things. And when it meets up with Saturn, this is going to be kind of a reality check. Saturn is like the stern elder, and he's in this watery, mystical ocean of Pisces where he's trying to build something, but Pisces is also trying to dissolve something of Saturn. And with the conjunction being this fusing of energies, this is going to be where love meets limits. You know, Venus, the planet of love and relationships and harmony, is going to meet some kind of reality test or limit or delay that needs to be worked through, perhaps in an emotional nature due to the nature of Pisces being a water sign. And, you know, Venus being the planet of desires, you know, desires can meet reality. We might have these big dreams and we might be revisiting what we value and what we want for ourselves, especially in an emotional and spiritual sense. And Saturn's going to come in and be like, okay, well, how do we make that real? Like, where are we being deluded? Where are we being, you know, overly optimistic or over idealizing our desires and our wants and our need for love, and how can we make it more tangible and more grounded in something that's practical and real? So, you know, it's a very heavy reflective energy with Venus conjoining Saturn. However, there's also this opportunity for a moment of tough love. You know, like sometimes you got to get real with yourself in a way that's loving, or real with somebody else in a way that's loving, so that they can, you know, have the support that they need, or so that you can understand that sometimes doing the hard thing is the loving thing. That's very Venus conjunct Saturn. There's also this opportunity maybe with Venus conjoining Saturn for a heart to heart. Like if Saturn represents things that like reality and what's real and what's practical, and Venus is in this, you know, inward facing, reflective, dreamy kind of romantic phase, this could be like having a heart to heart. Like, what do you want out of your relationships? What do you want out of your desires? And as Venus starts to station and slow down and turn direct, like this is a really good time. I made another video about it. Go check it out, about the whole Venus retrograde. I think my light's blinking. Just ignore that. It's a great time to get clear on those types of things, especially with the conjunction to Saturn right before she stations direct and things kind of pick up momentum and start becoming clear. Like, use this reality check, no matter how difficult it is, with Venus retrograde conjoining Saturn, as a moment to, like, you know, get your shit together, so to speak. And that's going to be a theme for this week. Because when Venus starts turning direct, having a greater sense of what your values are and what your foundations are in terms of love and relationships, desires and resources, money, finances, those types of things, creativity, having a broad sense of what your foundation is will help you move forward in a way so that you can take advantage of opportunities that are in alignment and not waste your time on, oh, do I want this? Do I not want this? It's like, no, you've done the Venus retrograde conjunct Saturn work, and you've figured out what your baseline is. And now you have something to, you know, ping off of, so to speak. So when something comes into your orb, you can check it against your Venus and Saturn lessons, and you can determine whether or not it's, you know, part of your path and what you need to do, or if you're feeling like, okay, this doesn't align with what I've laid as my foundation, so I'm going to skip this. Very important stuff. You know, with Uranus in the mix, there's a sextile there from Taurus, so there might be this kind of like unexpected insight or need to shake things up a bit. It can add a jolt of needing a little bit of freedom, especially with Saturn's rigidity. But that sextile there offers us an opportunity, a subtle opportunity that can be beneficial for us. There might be a general weirdness in the mix, but there might be ultimately a nudge in the rigidity of Saturn and this process. You might have a new insight, or something might pop up in your daily routine or in your physical world where it kind of shines an unexpected light on that Venus retrograde conjunct Saturn in Pisces that really helps you liberate from old patterns and old stuck subconscious kind of workings, and really gets you a little bit more insight and a little bit more clarity, as like what your foundations are in terms of those Venusian themes. It's going to break free a little bit, that Saturn energy, and kind of loosen it up a bit. Ultimately, I think that sextile from Uranus will lead to a kind of a light bulb moment that will offer a little piece of wisdom or insight that is going to be Venusian or Saturnian in nature. As Mars pulls away, it adds this kind of like moody, emotionally driven kind of wake in the water, so to speak. Because it's separating, it may not be as strong, but there's this Martian energy to take action towards what that Venus Saturn conjunction represents in a way that's emotionally in tuned and emotionally right for you in your gut feeling. Overall, today on Monday, we've got the moon in Leo. It's emotionally radiant, it's expressive, and it's in its waxing phase. So it's bold, it's moving outward, it's moving towards the full moon, and it's trine with the sun. So it's bringing a courage and a boldness from that Aryan energy. Jupiter will chime in later in the day with some optimism or some big ideas. You might feel a little bit scattered or all over the place, but go with it, dream big, and go after those opportunities that present themselves. And with this Venus-Saturn conjunction and the, sextile to Uranus and the separating trine from Mars, love, desires, resources, it's getting real. Uranus is throwing in some unexpected insights or some unexpected kind of revelations, a little bit of a wild card, and use that something unexpected to kind of shift your perspective towards those Venusian themes that we've been dealing with since the retrograde, and lean into it to learn from what Saturn's wisdom is trying to teach you. On Tuesday, April 8th, we've got the moon in Leo squaring Uranus in Taurus before the moon moves into Virgo, a little bit of a vibe shift from Leo, and she will square Jupiter by the end of the day. Throughout the day today, also, we have the Venus conjunction separating, but Venus is applying to a sextile to Uranus. So that's kind of what we've got for Tuesday. It's not a crazy big day. With the moon still in Leo, it's going to square Uranus overnight. You may not even really realize it because I think it happens at least at Eastern time, like at 3 a.m. or something like that. But you might wake up with this feeling of some tension that, between our emotional needs, the moon, and its need for attention in Leo, and Uranus's unpredictability and unsettling nature in Taurus. So, they're both in fixed signs, and the moon in Leo has this fixed emotionality, and that's meeting a kind of shakeup in that Taurian stubbornness from Taurus. Again, I'm not going to spend much time on this because it's happening overnight, but just know that if you wake up in the morning feeling a little bit tense or a little bit unsettled, ease into the day a little bit. Throughout the day, we've got the moon moving from Leo into Virgo, where it's shifting from an expressive, bold, warm, radiating kind of look at me, validate me, I want to express myself type of energy, to Virgo, which is a little bit different. It's more analytical, it's more pragmatic, it's a little bit more grounded, a little bit more subtle and inward facing. And so to me, this is a moment to get to work. With the moon in an earth sign, a mutable earth sign ruled by Mercury, it's time to focus on the details. It's time to get clear and get rid of the bullshit, get rid of the inefficiencies, get rid of what's not working. And especially coming off that Venus-Saturn conjunction, you might have some insights with Uranus in the mix. Get clear on what's working, what's not working, and do what you need to do to separate the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. Focus on the details today, especially midday. Clean up around, tidy up around the house. Clean up any messes that came up with Jupiter's scatteredness from yesterday, if anything came up. It's a kind of get it together and get the work done kind of vibe with the moon in Virgo. Especially with not much happening today and coming off the Venus retrograde conjoining Saturn. When the moon makes a square to Jupiter in Gemini, there might be a little bit of tension today with, the moon wants to focus on the details and wants to focus on, the nitty gritty and how things work and how to make it better. But Jupiter in Gemini is just like going on all these weird tangents and getting distracted and throwing in all these random ideas that might get that Virgo moon a little bit kind of unsettled or a little bit pissed off because, like, when you're trying to focus on something and you're like writing a paper, but then like, yeah, I don't know, somebody's in the kitchen, like, oh, look at this, look at that, or like, what about this? And you're like, I'm trying to focus right now. And like, oh, did you hear about this? Or did you hear about that? Or like, what Susie's doing today? Blah, blah, blah. That's very Jupiter and Gemini. And the moon is like, I'm trying to write a research paper right now. And I think that light is still, I need to fix that. It's like trying to write a research paper with like 7 people asking you different things. So, with Virgo's need for precision, there's a clash there with Jupiter and Gemini's need to be like big and loose and like looking at everything everywhere all at once. There's a tug of war between wanting to fix things with the moon and Virgo, but getting sidetracked by lofty ideas or like side tangents. It's like you go to clean out the closet and you're focused on like, okay, I'm going to make this really efficient, get really organized, put everything in bins and like stack and make it really nice. But then you notice like a picture from your childhood and you're like, oh, you get distracted. Then you notice something from high school and you're like, oh, okay, got you. And then some old artwork that you created or a letter from your mom. And it's like you're trying to get this thing done, but these things start coming in and trying to distract you. So just keep that in mind for Tuesday as you try to balance that. Throughout the day on Tuesday, too, we have Venus retrograde in Pisces, sextiling Uranus and Taurus. This is very subtle, and Venus rules Taurus, so there's some simpatico relationship there with Uranus. So although there's this inward focus kind of nature to the Venus retrograde in Pisces right now, she's open to the quirky ideas that Uranus is bringing or a need for liberation in some sense. Again, going back to this cleaning out the closet kind of thing, this Venus sextile Uranus, you might have like this looking through those old things as you're getting distracted might like spark an idea or something new or a different perspective or a memory that kind of shifts how you see things and how you relate to other people and what you desire and what you value. Keeping that in mind, that Venus retrograde rethinking is meeting a chance to break old patterns, essentially. So keep an eye out for insights regarding that, especially coming off the conjunction with Saturn, where we're starting to learn some lessons. We're bringing the Venus retrograde themes down into reality. They're being reality checked. We're creating a foundation. Keep an eye out for those innovative kind of insights and ideas. Ultimately for today, the moon gets an overnight jolt from Uranus, and you might wake up feeling a bit off, but with the moon's shift into Virgo, there's this kind of theme of getting your shit together and trying to get clear and focused. And by evening time, you might find this kind of clash with Jupiter where you're getting a little bit distracted, a little bit pulled off course. But just understand that that's part of the process and try to balance that tension as best as you can while still trying to get things done. The Venus sextile Uranus is going to bring an unexpected shift or insight to that retrograde process again. There's a lot of Venus retrograde stuff happening this week. So as we tie up a bow on that process, these themes are going to kind of come up and you might have new insights and new ideas and new innovative approaches to those themes, especially with the sextile to Uranus. So ultimately, it's an unsettled kind of start to the day. Then it turns into this practical kind of get shit done mentality. Even if it's a little scattered in the evening, there's this hint of freedom or liberation or something new, a little bit of excitement with Uranus in the mix. On Wednesday, April 9th, we've got the moon in Virgo and Mercury stationing direct trine Mars. Kind of a slow day for the moon, but the moon is ruled by that Mercury stationing direct. So there's a lot of emphasis there on Mercury and the moon and mercurial kind of topics. So with the moon in Virgo, there's still this grounded, practical, critical, analytical, get shit done, attention to the details, focus, or process-oriented type of execution vibe happening today. But with Mercury stationing, this brings a power to Virgo. When a planet stations either direct or retrograde, it slows down and it stays in one spot in the sky or appears to stop. And the ancients thought of that as like a moment of power or like intensity because it's not moving. It's like steadily just, staying where it's at and emitting its rays. So it's really pulling this with the moon in Virgo, a Mercury ruled sign, and the exaltation of Mercury. It's really putting this mercurial kind of emphasis even more so on this station direct. Mercury is in detriment and fall in Pisces, so it still may be a little foggy. There still may be a lot of intuition, a lot of uncertainty with mercurial themes. However, the retrograde fog will start to kind of begin to lift a little bit. I'm not going to say we're out of the woods yet, because it's still got to speed up and start turning direct and get out of Pisces before I think a lot of these themes will become a lot more clear. But I think it'll start to clear a little bit. With the trine to Mars in Cancer as it stations direct, communication, thoughts, ideas, how we mentally process things are shifting gears. And again, they're going to start to clear up a little bit with that Martian sense of emotional drive. Logic may still be fuzzy, but intuition is loud, and the retrograde process is starting to clear up a little bit. Mars will add kind of a moody, kind of gut level check to this process, especially in the harmonious trine. So there's this emotional drive that is connecting to this mental process of stationing direct and clearing our thoughts and getting, the Mercury retrograde process kind of starting to move forward a little bit. The Mercury will fuel Mars, in a sense. Like, there's these mercurial insights that are happening as Mercury stations. And with the trine to Mars, there's this an emotional energy. And on the flip side, Mars in Cancer will push the mercurial ideas into a quiet, emotionally in tune kind of action. I love this for Mercury stationing direct. We can't get around the fact that Mercury's in detriment and fall, but I think this kind of trine from Mars and Cancer, even though Mars is in fall and Cancer too, they're both kind of banged up a little bit, but they're helping each other out in a way that's harmonious. It's like it's like they're doing the best they can to help each other. That's honestly better than no help at all, in my opinion. So during this process, thoughts, that are becoming clear will meet a gut level kind of instincts, and mind and motivation will align in an emotional way. And conversations or plans that have been stuck in the retrograde process or seem kind of unclear or delayed might start to move a bit and start to get a push, especially by that trine to Mars. Ultimately, for Wednesday with the moon in Virgo, there's not a lot of drama. It's a lot different than the moon in Leo. It's just maybe a little bit moody, but the moon's trying to keep shit real and get stuff done. With Mercury, stationing direct, trining Mars, the retrograde issues will clear up a bit and start to move a bit, with a quiet push to kind of take action on those feelings and on those insights and thoughts that are coming up as Mercury stations direct. There's a calm focus today, but with a little bit of a mental reboot and a soft momentum as Mercury starts to kind of station and get some more movement. On Thursday, April 10th, we've got the moon still in Virgo, where she makes a harmonious trine to Uranus. She'll oppose Mercury, who is just stationed direct, move into Libra, where she opposes Neptune. And all while this, Mercury is still turning direct and trining Mars, so that you have that energy that we were talking about yesterday kind of moving into today. I'm not going to talk about that again because we just talked about it. So just a continuation of the Mercury direct trine Mars themes as well on Thursday. So ultimately on Thursday, we've got the moon in Virgo trining Uranus. The moon in Virgo is practical, it's logical, it's analytical, and it aligns in a nice way with Uranus's need for innovation and insights. This is useful. This is when, these grounded ideas, these grounded insights allow for a bit of productive chaos in a way. Uranus is a little unpredictable, and being a trine, that unpredictability is kind of helping the moon today. So that's why I say productive chaos. You might be having these unexpected insights or these changes of plans, but they're in a way somehow helping you refine or understand the process and leading to better ways to be efficient, better ways to work, better ways to get shit done. So, this is where smart fixes meet aha moments. I have that written down and underlined. Sudden ideas or tweaks kind of flow seamlessly into the day's rhythm. I like that, especially between earth signs. There's this grounded kind of practicality, bringing a kind of heaviness and a groundedness to all the fire and water stuff that's happening. So, water is really emotional and fire is very passionate and spiritual. And I don't know about you, but I have not a hard time with those two things, but like they can feel overwhelming. And so I have to spend everything's green around me because I like the feeling of being outside. And if I'm not outside, I want to feel like I'm outside to ground that energy. That's kind of how I feel Thursday, is there's this like grounding energy to start the day as, we've got that earth energy kind of bringing the fire and air from the week into something kind of stable. With that said, as the moon moves through Virgo, it's going to oppose Mercury stationing direct in Pisces. And so there's this tension between the moon's logic and need for pragmatism and this mercurial process of being mystic and emotional and kind of hazy in its detriment and fall in Pisces. So Mercury is still mushy post retrograde. Like when you go through a purification process, you don't just come out of it like brand new all of a sudden. It's like there's this process of integration. There's this process of kind of understanding what just happened. And so Mercury's kind of sensitive right now, especially in Pisces. And that's kind of clashing with the moon's need for, precision and efficiency and getting stuff done. Mercury's just kind of off floating in the ethers trying to figure out what just happened. And the moon's like, no, let's get to work. We got stuff to do. So keep an eye out for that kind of tension today. There's a frustrating disconnect that requires a balance between sorting out your feelings versus swimming in that mental confusion that Mercury's in Pisces at the moment. The moon will then move into Libra where she opposes Neptune. This is bringing a little bit more mistiness, confusion, delusion type energy with Neptune, but it's a little bit different now because Neptune is in Aries. So with the moon moving into Libra, the moon is swapping her tool belt for, a gavel and scales. It's like, done getting to work. Let's make things harmonious. Let's make things beautiful. Let's make things right. So the emotions turn again from that Virgoan kind of energy to balance and charm in more of a socially connected aspect. And it seeks a softer, more peace-oriented expression where the moon in Virgo might be a little nitpicky or a little bit critical in order to make things better. When it moves into Libra, its ultimate goal is harmony and peace. And sometimes that means being a little bit less critical and a little bit less nitpicky and trying to find the common themes and the common balances and what's working and what's not working. So the moon wants to, smooth things over now instead of refine them. And the moon wants clarity and peace. And Neptune in Aries has a fiery, dreamy vision that it's willing to fight for and willing to go after, something that it believes in. And so emotions get weird as there's this potential for over idealizing things or escapism to numb the intensity or the lack of the balance or clarity that the moon is wanting to have in Libra. Ultimately, on Thursday, there's a mixed bag. It's a sharp start, in my opinion, especially with that, trine to Uranus. But then it gets kind of muddled halfway through the day. And then by the ending of the day, it might be a little bit dreamy, might be a little confusing. And this need to escape or, transcend the messiness of the day might set in. So give yourself some self-care at the end of the day on Thursday, especially coming up on the full moon. Things might be a little intense, so take care of yourself a little bit. On Friday, April 11th, we've got the moon in Libra trining Pluto in Aquarius. Again, same moon in Libra vibes. I don't got to go over that. We just did. This time, that need for peace and harmony and, diplomacy is going to meet in a harmonious way or a flowing way the needs of Pluto, which they're transformative, they're deep, they're collective focused in Aquarius, they're idea focused in Aquarius. And this is between air signs. So I see this happening on the mental realm or the social realm or the intellectual realm. And with this trine, there's this quiet strength. The moon is drawing that strength from that transformative, deep, hidden, collective wisdom that is coming up from Pluto and Aquarius, and is able to find the harmony and find the balance with it, with the moon being in Libra. So you might feel emotionally poised and like put together, but there might be this like, this sense of like a potent, deep, kind of gritty feeling to that poise that gives you a sense of power. Pluto brings, again, that grit, a subtle force to the calm and balanced surface of the moon. Overall today, emotions are pretty chill, I think, with the moon in Libra, but there's this strong, quiet kind of undercurrent with that trine to Pluto. And there's something deeper happening behind the surface, not necessarily in a nefarious way because it's a trine aspect, but something that's deeply transformative and allowing you to maybe see things or feel things that, weren't there before. And relationships or inner peace today will get kind of a boost from that hidden power It'll be a little bit intense and a little bit transforming, but I think again with that trine aspect, there's going to be this sense of like, this is working for me. I feel empowered, and not in a evil or destructive way, but in a supportive and empowering way. On Saturday, 4/12, we've got the full moon in Libra, but right before the full moon, the moon will make a trine to Jupiter in Gemini. I kind of love this because the trine to Jupiter in Gemini right before the full moon adds a sense of optimism and a sense of hope and joy and fun. So I'm hoping that kind of tempers the intensity of the new moon a little bit. There's this airy optimism with Jupiter and Gemini, with big ideas, and the moon ruling emotions. Our emotions might get a lift. It might, I see this as being, again, jovial, fun, kind of social, more chatty rather than deep, and it's just kind of like this light, airy kind of vibe going into the full moon. It feels like this kind of calm, emotional approach of the moon in Libra is meeting this hopeful but kind of scattered, energy before the full moon. And I like that because I'm partial. I like the kind of social aspect of things. I feel like it helps kind of ease some of the other tensions. When you're going through a lot of heavy transits or heavy emotional processes or mental processes or even physical processes, doing it alone can be hard. Not can be, it is hard. And having that social aspect, even if it's not deep, like not everything has to be deep, but just having a social connection, having people around and getting those ideas and that optimism, that joy and that fun can really help kind of integrate a lot of the transits and the emotional experiences that we're having. So I personally like this. If you're an introvert, you probably like it too. You just probably like it on a smaller scale. I think it's important. So I like that as the moon goes into the full moon. So then after the trine to Jupiter, the moon will still be in Libra, and we have a full moon in Libra. And with the sun in Aries, this is bold and it's unstoppable. It's in its exaltation. It's ready to shine. It's ready to go. It's on the fiery battlefield for one, but the moon needs peace. It needs harmony. It needs diplomacy. It needs to take into account other people. How am I going to be social? How am I going to integrate with groups and the, social systems that I'm in, but still have that sense of identity and have that sense of individuality? That's what this full moon is going to be about. It's this us versus we kind of dynamic. There's this push for self versus a push for harmony and diplomacy. And there's that powerful polarity there where we're kind of testing our independence versus how we relate to other people and how that balances and how that works. And a full moon indicates an emotional peak, a culmination of the themes that we seeded or planted or the intentions that we came up with at the new moon. And with this being in Aries, we probably seeded intentions about like, what do I need? Like how can I better advocate for myself? How can I stand up for myself? How can I go after the things that I want? And with the sun is still there, so we're still dealing with those themes. And so with the moon being in Libra at this full moon, this is where, okay, like I set these intentions about what I want. I set these intentions about how I can be an individual and how I can stand up for myself and how I can push for what I want. But how does that affect other people? And where do I need to temper it a little bit? Where do I need to ramp it up a little bit? Am I still getting stepped all over, or am I stepping all over other people? Like where can I find that balance? Where can I find that harmony? As always, with any transit, particularly all transits, but I'm talking about the full moon, notice what house it's hitting for you. Notice what house Aries and Libra rule in your chart. And these will be the areas of life where these us versus me or I versus they kind of themes will start to manifest for you. And keep an eye out on where you might, be overstepping onto other people, or where other people might be overstepping onto you. That's very Aries Libra full moon situation. So ultimately on Saturday, it's a quiet day, meaning we have a full moon and that's pretty much it. But with Jupiter there, there's this chatty, social, optimistic energy via the trine, and this full moon is shining a light on how we exist as an individual and in relationships to other people. And I think Jupiter is helping out a little bit here. So I'm grateful for that. Lastly, but not leastly, we've got Sunday, April 13th. Whether you end the week or start the week here, it's up to you. This is where I'm ending the week. We've got the moon in Libra squaring Mars coming off the full moon before it moves into Scorpio, squaring Pluto. Ouch. That is a Sunday's going to be a prickly day. So just give yourself some time on Sunday. Give yourself some self care. It might be a little bit emotional, a little bit tense. So, and we'll get into that, but that's all I got to say. At the same time, Venus is stationing direct. So we've got Mercury stationing direct earlier this week. Now we've got Venus starting to station direct. So those retrograde themes from both planets are going to start resolving, clearing up a little bit, gaining some insights, thankfully. I'm ready to be out of retrograde season. Mars turning direct was great. I'm ready for Venus and Mercury to start changing direct. So first off, on Sunday, we've got the moon in Libra squaring Mars, coming off the full moon. You might have had a realization, you might have had an understanding, this us versus we, or us versus me kind of dynamic. You had some insights, some revelations regarding the seeds that you planted at the new moon. But now the moon meets Mars via square. It's air versus water, mind versus emotions. Tensions flare between the two. This moon in Libra need for peace clashes with, the emotional edge of Mars in Cancer. Ultimately, the moon wants harmony, and the Mars in Cancer is emotionally irritable and kind of passive aggressive. So there's a tension there. And being post full moon, this is kind of like a moody jab in inner unrest. Arguments might like come up. Emotions will feel off. It's a little bit of a tense vibe, especially coming off the full moon. So be kind to yourself, be kind to other people. And then the moon will move into Scorpio, which coming off the square to Mars isn't really that great because the moon's in her fall in Scorpio. So emotions are going to continue to feel off. It's a kind of dark, shadowy, prickly swamp of emotions when the moon is in Scorpio. And there's a rawness and a secretiveness and a sensitivity to Scorpio that the moon is really attuned to. And that's why she's at her fall in Scorpio, is that Scorpio is a very deep, intense, and, transformative, but in a dark way. Like, it wants to go to the depths of what's real and what's true. And sometimes that's uncomfortable. And for the moon, if you think about her exaltation in Taurus, it's a Venus ruled sign, earth sign. She wants stability. She wants relationship. She wants everything to be like a lush, nice, fertile garden. And in Scorpio, it's like deep, dark, swampy, foggy, like murky mess. And the moon's a little bit uncomfortable there, but there's some really good stuff for the moon to learn when it's in Scorpio. They're like, at the end of the day, Scorpio is bringing truth, and the truth hurts, but ultimately, once we have the truth, we can emotionally integrate that and become more stable because we can build something that's based in truth. As the moon goes through Scorpio, she's going to make a square to Pluto, which is adding insult to injury here, because there's this heavy friction between the scorpionic depths of, this emotional intensity and battling with this Aquarian collective transformative detachment from Pluto. And so like there's this weird sense where there's like this collective ideological transformation happening, and it's at odds with this deeply personal and deeply sensitive process that the moon is undergoing in Scorpio. So the moon is digging into feelings here, but Pluto is like this cold, detached transformer from Aquarius. And so there's this tension between, the moon is super sensitive, it's super raw, but Pluto's like, you're going to transform, and I don't give a shit how you feel. This is what you need. And so again, on Sunday, give yourself some time to integrate some rest, especially if you were social during the week or got your shit done during the middle of the week like we did with the moon in Virgo. This is time to just relax on Sunday, really ease into the day. There might be power struggles or, emotional truths meet these kind of stark, unforgiving revelations about things. All while that's happening, we've got Venus stationing direct in Pisces, which is adding even more to the waterworks. We've got the Venusian values, desires, and love starting to shift. Things are starting to clarify a little bit as she stations direct. So there's, this sense of emergence of the Venusian themes that we've been revisiting and kind of revising over the Venus retrograde process. So these are some heart lessons, that have come out of the Venus retrograde process and the conjunction to Saturn. and they're starting to kind of like clear up. We're starting to kind of get a better sense of what that process was like. It's still kind of gonna be, unclear because we're just starting the direct process. But relationships, money, creativity, and stuff like that will start to move a little bit forward. Overall, on Sunday, we've got intense emotions. We're going from edgy and deep to tricky, especially with the Mars, Scorpio, Pluto stuff, all the square aspects. It's a very emotionally charged day. And with Venus turning direct, we might be really in our feels, especially with it in Pisces, reflecting on that Venus retrograde process where, these themes around Venus are starting to unstick and move a little bit. And we're trying to consider what that means and what we just went through. It's kind of a rough end to the week / start to the week. There's some tension and depth, but there's also this Venus kind of process of bringing in a heart-centered stuff, or like love and relationships and desires. So be kind to yourself today. Take it easy. Get outside, trying to ground those emotional intensities if you have any. Connect with a friend or a loved one in a way that's supportive and mutually assuring. Sunday looks kind of sticky to me, so just be mindful of that and really take care of yourself. So that's the week ahead. We start off with a fiery surge with the moon in Leo trining the sun in Aries, and then Venus conjunct Saturn brings a reality check to our love, our money, our resources, our values, our desires. And the Mars in Cancer aspect of that will kind of dampen some of that fire with a little bit of a moodiness and a little bit of a gut level reaction to things. By middle of the week, we feel grounded and solution oriented with the moon in Virgo, ready to get things done. With Mercury retrograde, starting to turn direct, the fog of that process is starting to clear a little bit, and there's an emotional drive and a sense of intuition that's starting to guide us a little bit more. By the end of the week, we've got the full moon in Libra, bringing high emotional stakes between how we individuate ourselves and how we fit in to relating to other people, and that tension that needs to be balanced oftentimes in life with taking care of ourselves and taking care of other people. The intensity of the full moon does not stop after the full moon. We've got the moon making a square to Mars into Scorpio and squaring Pluto. So, there's going to be power struggles, there's going to be raw emotions following the full moon, but there's this opportunity for breakthrough and transformations if we really just sit with it and allow it to kind of bubble up and allow ourselves to process it in a way that's nice to ourselves. With Venus stationing direct as well, we have some clarity coming around those Venus retrograde themes of relationships, resources, beauties, desires, values. Ultimately, we've got bold launches, we've got intense closes, and we've got the fog of retrograde starting to clear off with both Mercury and Venus stationing direct this week. Your emotions may be a little unclear, especially with all the stuff towards the end of the week, but ultimately the Mercury and the Venus stuff will start to clear up a little bit. As always, guys, if you like this content, again, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps and it keeps you up to date with what's happening. Like this video if you liked it, and comment below on how you expect these themes to play out for you, if any of this resonates for you, how you've been dealing with Neptune and Aries. I would love to hear about that because it's been hitting me way harder than I expected. I expected it because it's on my sun, but still wasn't expecting it to be so literal and so kind of visceral. So let me know what you guys are experiencing down in the comments with all these transits. And until next time, guys, I will talk to you later. Take care.